Okay, Assalamualaikum and good morning semua. Kita boleh start. Okay, sebelum kita introduce our next speaker, from our strategic partner Yayasan Sabah, Dr. Waidi Sinun, kita ada satu video, very special video kita nak paparkan pada semua. Okay, mari kita sama-sama tonton ya.
I grew up at the foot of Mount Kinabalu, surrounded by trees. Little wonder my hearts belong here in Embak Canyon, for it is one of Sabah's last remaining stretch of virgin rainforest. This is Kapur Merah. It's an important timber tree. It is also a very important source of medicine. Cut the tree and wait for the sap to come out, and then apply the sap on the wound. Knowing how many medicinal plants lie within it, we lobbied hard for its protections. Thank God someone listened. Petronas helped us to get the area gazetted and build the infrastructure for scientists. We were free to catalog the many medicinal plants, and this is where the locals, the Orang Sungai and the Murut tribes people, are invaluable. They are showing scientists the medicinal plants that most wouldn't have a clue about. Somewhere in here, growing by a stream or on a rock, there could be a cure for cancer, diabetes, or heart disease. The research in Embak is still in its infancy, but I'm glad we are finally on our way. Today, Embak Canyon is recognized as one of the protected areas in Malaysia and increasingly becoming a popular destination for researchers. This was not always the case. A decade ago, this area was proposed to be logged, and we would have lost our friend here. And as long as this place is threatened, this shall be my office.
Thank you, Dr. Fatima Ahmedi, my partner. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Very good morning to all. Kita regang-regangkan suasana, saya bagi pantun satu ya. 2, 3 kucing berlari, mana akan sama si kucing belang. PKP Raya seminggu dah pergi. Aura makan-makan Syawal, jangan pula hilang. Yeah. So for those who are worrying about gaining weight, don't worry too much. Yeah? Eat while you can. Eat while you can. But don't forget exercising. Okay? One of the best habit of exercising is going for hiking or jungle trekking, preferably in the virgin forest, like what we saw just now lah, in Malay Basin. Ada berani lah agak-agak our participant. So when I saw that forest, of Malay Basin, I'm so excited, and I feel like I want to go there one of these days. Very excited seeing Dr. Waidi Sinun, our next speakers, went down the canyon and going up the hill. So maybe Dr. Fatima, one of these days we can arrange for our interested participants, because I saw in the video Dr. Waidi is doing research, and all here are the researchers, I believe so, yeah. And it is a very fascinating scene, and this is what our next speaker will share with us. Okay, but before that, allow me to read a bit on the background of our honorable speaker, Dr. Waidi Sinun. Okay, so in the early years of the service, Dr. Waidi Sinun was sent by Yayasan Sabah, his employer, to Queensland, Australia, where he completed his studies at Scott College, Warwick, and subsequently his first degree at the Queensland University of Technology. Later, he furthered his master degree in Manchester University and worked on tropical rainforest hydrology with sponsorship from the Royal Society, United Kingdom. Wah, hebat Dr. Waidi. So based on his master degree work, Dr. Waidi was awarded the Muriel Stott Scholarship by the University of Manchester for a PhD, studying the impact of mountain forest destruction on streams in the highland of Kinabalu. And currently, Dr. Waidi is the group manager of Conservation Area Management Division, focusing on managing 2 conservation areas of Malay Basin Conservation Area and Imbak Canyon Conservation Area. Susah mau sebut nama-nama tempat tu ya, nampak sangat terlalu jauh, terlalu remote. So, without further ado, please welcome our honorable speaker, Dr. Waidi Sinun. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Can anybody hear me?
Boleh dengar, Dr. Waidi?
Ya, Doctor.
Yes,
Can hear?
Boleh.
Yes, can hear you.
So Fatima will be controlling my screen here. But as you can see from the title, I'll be sharing with you about our experience in managing the conservation area within owned or managed by Yayasan Sabah, and how we benefit from our associations with the communities surrounding us. So next, please. Next, Fatima. Can I have the next slide, please?
Nampak tak? Saya dah gerakkan. This one.
Masih lagi first slide.
Masih. Kejap, Miss. Saya stop sharing.
Okay. Tadi dah ada.
Okay, boleh. Okay ke, Dr. Waidi?
Can you go back? Okay. So I will be sharing with you our knowledge about community surrounding the protected area by first introducing you what Yayasan Sabah is. Many in Sabah know about Yayasan Sabah, but perhaps those outside of Sabah may not be as familiar about Yayasan Sabah. So, and then I will share with you the protected areas within the management of Yayasan Sabah, namely Novella, Malay Basin, Imbak, just to introduce to you briefly about what they are and what we do there. And then I will relate to you our feeling, or rather the relationship about the protected area vis-a-vis with the community and sustainable development goal. And then I will share with you how we involve the communities in the protections of protected area, how they are involved in many different approach, directly and indirectly. And then I will share with you what other things that we wish to do in relation to the protected area in the communities in the future. So next slide, please. So for those who do not know Yayasan Sabah is a parastatal body. Yayasan Sabah was established by the Sabah Dewan Undangan Negeri in 1966 with the visions of, we want to be dynamic, people-oriented, committed, and caring organization. Basically, objective of Yayasan Sabah or Sabah Foundation is to improve the standard of living, of Malaysians living in Sabah, mainly through education and other relevant related activities. So perhaps you may wonder why we are involved in protected area, yet our objective of establishing ISMAN is quite different. The reason is related to the source of funding of Yayasan Sabah. So in order to run Yayasan Sabah, the government of Sabah allocated Yayasan Sabah with about 1 million timberland. Next, please. Next. So, so within that 1 million hectare of forest land, we have areas that we set aside for conservation. Basically, it's a protected area. Sometimes you call this protected area parks, taman-taman, ataupun sometimes you call them conservation area. So in the case of Yayasan Sabah, we set within the 1 million hectares of forest itu, we have Danau Valley, Malay Basin, and Imbak Canyon. Next, please. So these are the location of Yayasan Sabah concession area. It terletak very much inside, in the center of Sabah, most of it. And two of the areas are actually really quite the center of the state of Sabah, basically Malay Basin and Imbak Canyon Conservation Area. Next, please. So this is Danau Valley Conservation Area. As I said, it was part of the 1 million hectares of timber concession of Yayasan Sabah. The size is quite significant at about 43,800. It was set aside as conservations in 1991, but only given the protections in 1995. Now I can go on with the biological characteristic of the area and how it's managed, but I think that is not why we want to do the sharing today. So next, please. Okay, this map illustrates, although this is not quite complete, some of the villages that are located close to Danau Valley. Now, most of the conservation area, most parks or most protected area, almost all the forest reserve in Sabah is established in such a way that there is no people inside it. So dalam konteks yang sama, Danau Valley Conservation Area and the other conservation that we have, hey, no people, there's no communities living in the actual area today, but in the past they have been, because we have burial grounds in the conservation area and so on. So the access to the Novella Conservation Area is from there's a road here. You can see the road supposed to be from Tawau going to Sandakan. So there's a road going to Danau Valley from there, and you can see that most of the people are located along the road. But on the northern part of the Danau Valley, there's actually a river, and this river littered with kampungs in the past who have moved up and down the river since then. So this map is not quite complete as far as locations of the villages is concerned. Next, please. Malay Basin is, as you saw in the map, is located in the center of Sabah. Again, we have established a studies center, mainly for research, but it's also for tourism. But basically, it's an area which is unique. While Danau Valley represents what forests used to cover Sabah in the past, Malay Basin is unique globally because of the way the shape of the geomorphology, of the morphology of the conservation area. Okay, next, please. If you look at this, the next map should show you the locations of Malay Basin in the context of its surrounding area. You'll notice that it is not too far away from the road, the new road from Tawau to from Tawau to Kiningau, KK, and the important mukim or major kampung along this road is, as you can see there, Kalabakan, Sapulut, Nabawan, and Suk. But within, very close to the conservation area, you will also see several villages on the north west of the conservation area. Kampung Langga, Kampung Inara, and so on. You can see that from the map. And that's most. These are some of the most remote villages in Sabah. So next, please. The next slide should show you where about Imbak Canyon Conservation Area. This is a newly established, the newest conservation area we have, or one of the newest major conservation area. And we have the important considerations here, I suppose, is that we have worked with Petronas since its establishment from the very beginning, and we are now currently in the third phase of that collaboration, which has a lot more components of community or social science in it. Next, please. Of all the conservation area we have, except there was one very close to, at the coastal area. This is the most, as I can say, the most important area in relations to community, because it is basically surrounded by the remotest communities in the whole of Sabah. So if you go up Sungai Kinabatangan, you will end up at the headwater of Kinabatangan, and you will see all of these villages surrounding the conservation area. So we are hoping that we will be able to assist this community through the Imbak Canyon development. Hopefully it will become a center for development for community research in tourism, and therefore it would be interesting how we work with them in the future. So next, please. So how do we think? What do we feel about the relationship between the communities, protected area, and sustainable development? Now, we are very lucky because all of the conservation area that we have within Eastern Sabah has been established within our lifetime. So I and many of my generations were involved in preparing the first management plan of the area. The same thing with Malay Basin, the same thing with Imbak Canyon Conservation Area. So Danum Valley, for example, has had about 20 over years management plan, and we are currently in the process of reviewing them, revising it. And Malay Basin we are implementing the second revised management plan, and Imbak is in the middle of implementing its first management plan. So in a way, this generation, because of that, we are lucky to be able to look at it from the community point of view. In the past, most of this protected area, especially during colonial days, it was just a matter of, this area is a park, therefore that's it. There was little communications with the surrounding community, and that's obviously is something that we need to improve, and it's something that is very crucial in the way we see the management of the protected area within the Yayasan Sabah remit. So in order to establish this protected area, we do a lot of surveys. We collaborate with international NGOs, international parties. For example, in Danum Valley, we have been very much involved with in collaborations with the Royal Society of England, and in a lot of the findings from these collaborations became an important data in preparing the management plan. In the case of Malay Basin, we have been involved with, we collaborated with Danish International Development Agency through DANSET, and then the first management plan was formulated based on the activities that we carried out, both biological research, physical research, as well as social research or social survey. So there was a lot of survey in gathering baseline data, not only on biodiversity actually, but also on social study. And this, in the case of IMBAC, this was carried out very much in the early 2010s. Malay Basins around early 2000, and the case of Danau was in the early 90s. So next, please. So basically, the reason is simple. The sustainability of our heritage, this conservation area are our heritage, is a Malaysian heritage. Its sustainability depends very much on understanding the relationship between the human and the flora and the fauna that we wish to maintain, to make sure that they thrive as well as we thrive. More than anything else, perhaps is their protection in a way. So next, please. So protected area versus, in relation to sustainable development goal. There are many aspects of the protections of the conservation area in relation to the communities that addresses the sustainable development goal. And this is basically a few of them that I think relevant to the protected area, to the conservation area, to parks. So Yayasan Sabah goals in elevating socio-economic status of the Malaysian in Sabah includes the communities living in the protected area. In fact, Yayasan Sabah have a special unit called community forestry, and we have a program that centered along the Kinabatangan River, and not related to the protected area especially, but related to the whole concession area. So in a way, it's related. Now, so to promote sustained, inclusive, sustainable economic growth, SDG 8 through employment and so on, we consider that very closely in how we manage the area, because after all, the most affected people in relation to the conservation of all of this area are the surrounding community. So we see that the inclusions of these communities and the interests are pertinent issues in managing the conservation area. So I will be sharing you in the later slides about the approach that we took in order to include these communities in the management of the conservation area. Next, please. So the management plan that we have, especially in relation to impact and to some extent Malay Basin, took into considerations not only the protections of the forest habitat and biodiversity, but we also look into the knowledge, the traditional knowledge that these people have. And based on our experience, between the time we started collecting information about the traditional ecological knowledge, particularly ethnobotanical information, many of these provider of information have passed away within the last, close to 20 years. Many of those that used to know this knowledge have passed on. So it is important not only to consider how they benefit from the protected area, but as important, I think, is to document the knowledge that these people has, to conserve them, to preserve them, because whether we like it or not, many of the informations that they have, especially in relations to the medicinal plants and so on, are good. Those plants that are going to be conserved in this conservation area, and it is important to use the knowledge that this orang kampung has, and then relate it to the conservations of the species in the context of the conservation area. Now, the participations of local stakeholders are very important, and in relations to G16, for example. So while the indigenous people are important, but also the infrastructures that manage the local areas are also important, and the management plan that we formulated went through the process of including all the stakeholders within the close proximity of the conservation area, as well as outside, for example, the tourism industries and NGOs and so on. So there's a lot of interactions between the sustainable SDG and any management of protected area. If you wish to involve as many stakeholders as possible, and if you wish to manage the conservation area for the benefit of humankind and for the benefit of us, the owner of this khazanah. So the sustainable development of this conservation area, to me, is very important in how we approach its management. Okay, now how do we involve the communities? How we physically involve the communities? We have many ways, and I'm sure if we have involvement from academia, we will probably be able to apply a lot of the information that the previous speakers have outlined. I mean, it would be interesting how to apply that, not only on myself, but many of the officers and senior officers within these organizations that are involved in managing our conservation area. But at least with the little knowledge that we have, next slide please, we have been able to involve the communities, local communities, in managing the conservation area through many levels. For example, we strategically involve them at the management level by developing the management plan through the participations, as I mentioned earlier, of the community leaders, district office, and other stakeholders. So the local community are involved right from the beginning as to how best to manage the area in the future, now and in the future. They have also, that is management plan. We have a management plan for 10 years. It is revised after 5 years. So they are involved in the beginning, but we also don't involve them from time to time, because one of the structure in managing the conservation area is an establishment of management committee in each of the conservation area, and there again we involve them through that process, and also we are also involved in the case of Imbakanyan conservation area. We are involved in the Majelis Tindakan Daerah, and therefore we are able to communicate with the village leaders surrounding the communities, and how they see what we are doing in managing conservation area. Next slide, please. So while we see this as empowering, we also involve them in the public awareness and outreach program, community leaders in the youth. So for example, in Imbak, we helped establish a Imbak Canyon Porter and Guide Associations. Those members are basically from the members of the community, mostly the young people of the communities. We arrange training for them from the government or from the tourism industry. We also have many dialogues. So we have, I mean, it's not easy to do, but we have right from the beginning we carried out many dialogue sessions throughout the Mukim, basically the Ulu Kinabatangan. We also help. We are young, so we have not done much, but through collaboration with Petronas, mainly for Petronas funding, we are also able to establish JT for the village most affected or most affected by the conservation area, and we also help them establish kiosks, which is very important building that house the Imbak Canyon Porters and Guide Associations. For Malay Basin, we also established Porter and Guide associations. We have a very active environmental educations from schools surrounding the area, and also we have carried out community leaders course. We call it sustainable development course for the villages, for the Ketua Kampung, JKK in the past, and but this is also goes to the other village leaders in the whole of Sabah. We hope to continue with this when the means to do so is available. Danum Valley community, local communities is a bit more further away from Danum Valley itself, but we do carry out programs related to them in relation, on doing outreach program and public awareness. So next, please. Now, the other collaborations that we have, the most important link we have with the local community is related to human resource improvement. Next, yeah. So most of the workers in each of our conservation area are from the local community. We hire them as officers, rangers, and hospitality staff. In fact, most of the can we go back before that, please? The previous slide. So in the case of Danum Valley staff, we have staff from Ulu Kinabatangan, Lahadatu, Silabukan, Ulu Sigama, Kinabatangan, and Lahadatu in Silabukan. And in the case of Malay Basin, staff are from Kalabakan, so Keningan, Nabawan, Tawau, and Sepulut. In the case of Imbak, staff are from Tongod, Telupit, Pinanga, and Ranau. Now, apart from that, we also engage people from the community. Next slide. From that, we also engage community members of the community as research staff. And we also, well, most of this area, as we all know, is quite. There's a lot of things that we don't know about our conservation area. Unlike the conservation area in Japan or in Scandinavia, in the Northern Europe, or in the developed countries, and where the forests are less diverse, most of the information about the flora and fauna within their conservation area has been studied. So they know quite well about the ecological behavior of the species that are living within their conservation area. But in the case of ours, we hardly scratch the surface. We basically, very much of our study has been focused on distributions, has been studying taxonomic and so on. But the behavioral study on our animals are very lacking. Case in point, for example, orangutan is a very important species in Sabah, Malaysia, Sabah in particular. But most of the knowledge that most of the experts in orangutan are not Malaysian, are not Sabahan. They are from other countries that we welcome to come. Obviously, there's a lot of efforts that needed in order to study this conservation area, and I think it will be very important that the local are involved in the process of studying the individual species living within the conservation area, because they, as the previous speaker have said, they probably know more knowledge, more information about this wildlife, this the flora even than most people. You know, the best rangers in Peninsula are mostly the best rangers in Sabah, obviously, are the local indigenous community. It is important to link that possessions of knowledge to the active management of the conservation area. So next, please. We are also engaged community as tour guide and porters, as I already said, and I think if anybody knows about the forest, it would be the local community. So we are very much involved in managing the conservation area by promoting tourism, but in doing so, engaging the local community in the hospitality industry. So many of the rangers, many of the guides that we currently have in the protected area are coming from the surrounding community. So that's another way of engaging the community. At least this is what we have done. This is happening on the ground. So where do we go from here? Now, we see tourism development. Hopefully, after the COVID-19, this will change. The scenario on tourism industry will change, and we believe that is so. So, the tourism development, if you can move to the next slide, please. The tourism development, especially in Malay Basin and Imbar, is possibly increasing. I think will be nationally, globally. So, we hope to be able to collaborate with the surrounding communities in the next engagement with the local communities by working with them so that they will be able to provide the resources that we need in order to run the establishment within the conservation area. For example, we wish that they are involved in providing the resources for our menu, and they will provide us with the handicraft that we will be using to selling to the visitors. We hope that we'll be able to handle most of the transportations out to the next township in surrounding the conservation area. We would also like to see, I mean, all is wishful thinking. We wish to be able to do it, of course, but there will be a lot of knowledge required. There's a lot of assistance that we are going to require to provide to them in order to make this into a reality. We also like to empower the communities by increasing the number of employment from them, perhaps also in the management level. We hope to provide environmental educations and public awareness. Next slide, please. So that their level of understandings of conservation, the importance of conservation and biodiversity, is as good as most people, so that they will understand the values of this conservation area. We have to be able to provide them with assist them to know more about the ecology, the flora and the fauna, and hopefully with the increase in the development of research program in the conservation area, they too will benefit from the knowledge that we hope to gain. Obviously, like any other land use management, there would be conflict with the surrounding communities and the communities further away from the conservation area. The most obvious conflict that we have is related to hunting, and hopefully we will be able to do a thorough understanding of the issue, and not only will be able to physically prevent them through enforcement of law, but we would also hoping to improve the understanding in the way that certain developed countries understood their resource and how to manage the resources effectively. This is similar to understanding of the, especially in Sabah. We know there were times in Sabah in which most of the river were depleted from fish. But the introductions of the understanding, introduction of Tagal helped revive many of these rivers. And basically, Tagal is an approach that was there before the advance of modern ways of extracting fish from the river, like using bomb or pukat and so on. So hopefully we'll be able to apply the same concept in relation to managing the conservation area vis-a-vis about the hunting and so on. So number 4 is another things that we would like to look into, how that's going to unfold, depend on further research that we hope to come up together with our collaborators. So I think that's about it. If you next slide, yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Waidi Sinun, for the presentation. So let us open to all our members here. Any question for Dr. Waidi Sinun? Let me stop sharing first. Okay, so let me just go through the chat box, Dr. Waidi Sinun. Okay. From Umi Nur Nazahia, what are the important problems in industry for collecting data? I think that's what he meant.
But what data are you referring to? Are you talking about the community data, social science data, or?
Okay. Dr. Umi Nur Nazahia, what maybe you can unmute. What are the important problems in PA industry for the collected data, right? Or is it from the collected data?
Thank you, Dr. Fatimah. Can you hear me? All right. I'm missing M from the question. The question is exactly what are the important problems in preservative area industry from the collected data? Thank you, Dr. Waidi, for the presentation. Just now you presented that from Yayasan Sabah, your team already did the survey, interview, and also many data collecting on searching or investigate what possible improvement can be done in the PA area, in the PA, I think. So my guess is maybe from your team, you already know what are the important problems that can be tackled to improve the PA in Sabah. Thank you.
Do I answer that?
Please.
Okay. As I said, as far as the area that I mentioned, They are all very, very new area. So, for example, Imbak only done one layer of survey. There's a lot more information that we need with the communities. If you're focusing on social issues, then the information about the communities, it was done about close to 10 years ago. So, and even that one, I think there's a lot more information that are required. But the area that you're talking about, we are talking about a huge area. It's not easy to get from one place to another. So extractions of the information is one. Interviewing the people is one. You need to have the right person to interview them too, and so on. So there are problems that we face in being able to collect good data. This is in relation to community, though. I mean, as far as biological data is concerned, that's another layer of information that altogether different from community. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. That means, Dr. Waidi, that means that there are still surface issues that we need to explore more from our side, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for the information.
Thank you so much, Dr. Umi and Nona Zahia, for the question. Okay, do we have any other questions?
Dr. Waidi,
Yes.
when was Danida through Danset involved in the PA areas?
Danset, okay, may I answer that?
Boleh.
Danset or Danida were with us when we began managing the Malay Basin Conservation Area actively. So starting around about 1999, we managed to convince them to work with us to study the whole area, at least to the baseline study. So with the assistance, we were able to come up with the first management plan. That was in 2003. First management plan was formulated, developed with the Danset. So there's a lot of baseline survey that they were carried out, which was then funded by them. And then they also helped establish the management center, the study center that we are currently using to manage the conservation area.
So that includes renewable energy, solar photovoltaic, implementation of solar photovoltaic for the buildings.
We look at it. It was the knowledge about it was there, but it was quite expensive then. We also look at the micro hydro. So there were studies that were carried out then, but we have yet to implement them because of the costs and so on.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Prof. Aslan, for the question. Dr. Umi, another question, right? You'd like to ask what types of knowledge transfer the Yayasan Sabah needed in this PA industry, preservation area industry, right? Dr. Waidi?
Knowledge transfer? I mean,
Yes. The type of knowledge transfer, yes.
I'm not sure about this knowledge transfer things, but what we do, the assistance we need from outside, that where our capacity is limited, obviously, is in doing further studies about the traditional ecological knowledge of the people, the communities. Now that is a very big positive in our part, and living with remote communities, we thought we started elements of that, but obviously we have no expertise. I'm a hydrologist, so obviously we need assistance from that. So there are many. I mean, if talking about about how we engage with the communities. Maybe there's room for improvement. I don't know. These are things that we need to. We are, as I said, we are young. You know, my staff are in the 30s and in the 20s, so we are still learning how to manage. You know, we have kursus protected area management, but the real science related to engaging with the communities, engaging with other people, you know, this is that we thousands of species within our conservation area, and even the documentations of what we have is still unfinished. It needs to be done. Naming of the things that we have is still we have to do. Now, if you were to promote this place as a destination for tourism, we don't want to do it like other people, you know, just point fingers at the animals, flora and fauna. We want to be able to share it, like if you have visited other country, they're able to communicate to you to the level of understanding A to Z about a specific species, about grizzly bear, for example, about caribou, for example. They would tell you everything there is to need to know about that species. But our species, as I said, orangutan, not only the Japanese have done as much knowledge as we do. Kita punya animal, nobody know. I'm not saying nothing, but there's a lot of things that we need to do. I mean, what is our most important species in Sabah? Another important species is, for example, gajah. Maybe they need more. They have a lot more information about gajah, the distribution and so on. Tapi species yang lain kita tak tahu pun. Kita tak tahu apa dia, what are their feeding behavior, what are their breeding behavior, what are they. So if you were to become the knowledge destinations as tourism, we need to have knowledge about all of this, and this is what we are lacking. Because the scientific sophistications in order to get this knowledge is a lot more than what we have. And in relation to the community, again, we are still groping. We thought that, okay, give them job, then they will be okay. But they're still hunting, for example. Why are they still hunting? Is it because of economy, or is it because of the lifestyle that they want to preserve? I don't know. There's also conflict with the surrounding land use, with the oil palm, for example. That needs to be established so that conflict is reduced. Conflict between us, the manager of protected area in the oil palm, for example, and the conflict between the communities that living in our periphery with the other land use. So there's a lot of transfer of knowledge that you can name if you dig. Okay.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Waidi. And comment from yes,
I have one. Maybe I should have one last question for Dr. Waidi, since we are running out of time. Basically, Dr. Waidi, I think all the participants here are looking forward to visit Malay Basin. So I have two interrelated questions. Number one is, maybe Dr. Waidi can describe to the participant how far is it going to take to reach Malay Basin from Kota Kinabalu, and how many days, the best minimum days to stay there to do the exploration and whatsoever. The second question is, if we want to do the community engagement in the protected area community or the surrounding community, what actually the top of the list required by the communities based on Dr. Waidi's and Yayasan Sabah experience? Thank you, Dr. Waidi.
So the first question is only on Malay Basin, is it?
Because I think the entrance is Malay Basin, right?
No, each area have different entrance.
Okay. What is the shortest one?
Okay. The easiest to go from KK would be Malay Basin, because it's basically a seal road all the way to the center. Now you have two options. If you want to be in the forest within the conservation area, you can go to our study center, because we have rest house, we have hostels, we have camping ground. So you can enjoy say 3 days, 2 nights or 4 days, 3 nights in the center. But if you want to go into the basin and experience the changes of ecosystem from the lower area going up, then you will need to have at least 4 days, 3 nights, or even better 6 days, 5 nights, because you will do a lot of trekking. If trekking, say for example, if you have a community you want to be closer with, a good team building is to go there and trek into the Lost World. So that is Malay Basin. So Danum Valley is another access through Danum Valley, and of course Imbak you have to access through Telupit. The second question is about the
list, the knowledge transfer that the community.
Top the list. I think the basic question is how do we as a community benefit from the act of conserving Imbak Canyon? I think that will be the top stories that they. You see, we started Malay Basins around 2009. That's when we started actually conserving it properly. So it is new to the villagers. They're getting themselves familiar with the ideas of the conservation area. Some of them are actually working there. Many of the staff of the area appreciate the contributions of the conservation area, the act of conserving it. But I think the elements of engagement is still required. Basically, how do we benefit from it? I mean, you're talking about Kinabalu. A lot of people benefiting from Kinabalu, especially now. I mean, not with the COVID, but there's a lot of beneficiaries to Kinabalu locally. The people in Ndasang are happy with it. The people in Lohan are happy with it. The people in Bunutuhan are happy with it. The people in the Kota Belud villages are happy with it because it benefits them economically, physically. So ultimately, I think a lot of the lower rank of the requirement is how do we communicate to them the message that this conservation area is as much for them as the whole country or the world.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Waidi. There is a question from the floor, Dr. Fatima, I think from Dr. Adria. Do we need to have permit to go to do our exploration activities over there, Dr. Waidi? Any permit needed? Permission?
Well, if you are, yes, you do. If you are doing a biological studies, then you need to have a research permit from the Sabah Biodiversity Council. So this is in order to access the biodiversity. The community, I think what you need is to establish communications with the district office or the relevant office. But obviously, suggestions of what you want to do should come through us from especially the management committee. But if it is about the local communities that you want to study, then I think the local government need to be involved. I mean, the district office must be communicated.
Thank you so much, Dr. Waidi.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Waidi Sinun, for the great input and sharing session, especially when it comes to this preservation area industry. Okay.